If you're a fan of roadkill, then you probably know I'm into boats, particularly drag boats. Boats that go a quarter of a mile at a time as quick as humanly possible across water, that's my deal. And a few years ago, I sold my last drag boat. It was a pickle fork jet boat with a nitrous motor in it. It ran like 730s at like 140 miles an hour. It was fun. But I lost my mind and decided I wanted to go quicker. So sold all that stuff to my buddy Jeff, started gathering parts for a new boat. This is a 420-pound, 19-foot-long Tom Peterson Placecraft hull. And this is the business end of it. It's powered by a 711 cubic inch Sonny Leonard Chevy Hemi. And I'm calling it a Chevy Hemi because it's a 5-inch bore space Chevy block, but it's got his own design Hemi heads on top of it. So it's a combination of two different kinds of deals there. And this thing on pump gas will make 1,275 horsepower at 7,400 RPM. But that's not enough because I'm an idiot. So I'm putting turbos on top of these things. We've got two precision 88mm turbos going on here. And on pump gas, it'll probably make about 2,000 horsepower. I have no intentions of ever turning it up past that because I want to live. I got kids. And so it's not done. I don't know how fast it goes. I'm still working on it. And right now I'm building the turbo headers. And I got all the parts from stainlessheaders.com. Those guys are super cool. It's all American-made tubing. I dig it. They're very helpful. They have a bunch of their own videos that'll show you exactly how to build headers. But I want to do it myself. So this side is basically done. I've been cutting up tubing for a week now, sanding, fitting, all of it. Now I'm ready to go on to the other side. And today I'm going to show you what I'm using to cut the tubing because it's kind of been a little bit of a nightmare. I don't have the budget for a massive vertical bandsaw that'll cut stainless tubing, so I've been using a couple other saws that I'm going to show you right now. I've had this Milwaukee abrasive chop saw for probably, 10 years now. And before I knew any better, I thought this is fine for cutting tubing and, angle iron and whatever else, because it actually does work. It runs at about 3,950 RPM. It's got a 15 amp motor on it. This will do the job. But as I found out recently when I bought another saw, this doesn't do the job very well. Watch. It's got a clamp. It's actually a pretty sturdy clamp. Put that in there. This is our stainless tubing that we got from stainlessheaders.com. It's 065 wall. And this is a junk piece of tubing because I really don't want to waste any. 14-inch diameter blade. Like I said, it's an abrasive chop saw. So one of the downsides of these things are that the blade actually flexes. And so when you're cutting through stuff, especially pretty tall stuff, the blade will actually deflect and you'll end up with a cut that's not really straight. But beyond that, there's sparks. It leaves a whole lot of metal inside the tube that you got to deburr afterwards. It's just not a great idea to use this. But for a couple $100 at your local hardware store, you can buy one of these and it will get the job done. So watch this thing work. Alright, so our cut, if you look here, is pretty straight, but not perfectly straight. There's actually a little bit of angle there. But the other thing that really sucks and slows you down is it leaves a whole lot of material inside the tube that you've got to go back and get rid of. You've got to deburr this, because obviously this is going to hinder exhaust flow, and when you weld this, it isn't going to weld very well because that's in there. So, yeah, it works, but not real well. Let's show you something better. Ready for the new hotness? This is the Fein Slugger cold saw. And they call it a cold saw because it creates very little spark. The part doesn't get hot after you take it off. The blade doesn't flex like it does on that Milwaukee abrasive saw you saw earlier. In fact, watch, I'm going to move it. I'll move the guard, and you can see that this blade actually has teeth. And this particular one is designed for stainless steel. When you buy this saw, it comes with a general purpose blade, that will cut mild steel. It'll cut stainless steel too. This blade is just supposed to last longer when you're cutting stainless steel over and over again. The reason this works as good as it does is it uses this type of blade at a much lower RPM. This only spins 1300 RPM, whereas the abrasive saw spins almost 4000 RPM. They both have 15 amp motors, but as you're going to see, this one cuts with very little slag afterwards and very few sparks. Ready? Look at that. I don't even have to file that. I could clean it, put another tube up to it, and go right to welding if I wanted to. It goes through it like butter. And beyond that, this thing's built like a tank. The clamp is very durable. Everything is thicker. The base is cast. The tools for replacing the blade or changing the guard here, they're all built into the base here. It's got a pocket for collecting debris. This thing is a beast. I paid, I think, $530 for this thing, shipped to my place in Georgia from tricktools.com. I like doing business with those guys because they're very helpful. I basically called them and said, hey, I don't have the ducats to buy a vertical bandsaw, even though I want one. What can I use to cut up stainless steel tubing over and over and over again to build a set of headers that, you know, it's not going to waste tubing? And they recommend this, and dude, I'm into it. I'm totally into it. So the only downside to using the Slugger or the Milwaukee or any other saw of this configuration is you're limited to what you can cut. I'm using J-bends here for my exhaust system because I can cut one of these into two different 90s. I can cut them at different angles. The issue is when you lower the blade down and you go to cut, I'm going to get through this tube, which I want to, but in order to get through that tube, the blade might nick this side of the tube. And with this kind of blade with teeth, it can actually chip the teeth on it and mangle the tube. On the Milwaukee with the abrasive blade, it won't mangle the blade, but you're still going to ruin a piece of tubing you didn't mean to cut. The other issue is when you want to cut in the middle of a bend, and you've got an angle on both sides here that you can't clamp with. You can't hold that. So what you're tempted to do is hold the piece with your right hand, operate the saw with your left, which is dangerous, and the odds are good that this blade is going to grab it and fling the piece that way and hurt your hand, and I don't recommend doing that. So those are the only other situations where you're sitting there going, damn, I wish I had the money to buy a proper metal cutting bandsaw. But beyond that, if you're making straight cuts, this thing is a beast, and I totally recommend it. Ready for this? This is awesome. Butter, baby. That was really bad. I forgot I broke this blade earlier. I need to put the other blade on. I actually chipped the tooth on this earlier on accident. So, look, no slag, but it also kinked the tubing because the blade caught it.